I'm Reisigo and I'm attempting to complete every single GameCube game, but I'm randomizing what game I'm playing next. In this episode, we're playing as some of the most iconic Nickelodeon cartoons as they help each other to take down their villains to save the world in Nicktoons Unite. So let's see how Nicktoons Unite is in 2024. Nicktoons Unite was released on October 26, 2004, and was developed by Blue Tongue Entertainment and published by THQ. In Nicktoons Unite, we're going to go through the story mode to consider this one complete. This game opens up with a cutscene of Bikini Bottom and one of our main characters, SpongeBob SquarePants. At this point, nothing is happening, but all of a sudden, Plankton shows up and begins taking control of Bikini Bottom with these giant vacuum machines. Anyone that goes against him is being sucked up into the machine, so SpongeBob goes and hides behind his house when this green portal shows up and Goddard comes out through the portal. SpongeBob pleads for his life, but it's actually Jimmy Neutron, another main character, telling him that he needs SpongeBob's help to take down Plankton. He tells him to follow Goddard through the portal and back to his lab, and he'll explain everything. This ends the cutscene, and then we get the opening screen where it shows all of the characters that we play in the game. I really like this because it's like the opening of an action movie or something, showing everyone's special moves and strength with music playing over it. It was really cool, and I think it was a really good way to introduce us to the game. This will show us that we're going to have 4 iconic Nickelodeon characters that we can use during our playthrough of this game. First up being SpongeBob SquarePants, which we already knew, Timmy Turner from Fairly OddParents, Danny Phantom from Danny Phantom, and lastly Jimmy Neutron, who we just met in this cutscene and will act as more of the mastermind behind saving the world, but we can still use him as a character. The next cutscene has SpongeBob meeting the rest of the team, and then Jimmy Neutron explains what is going on. He created a universe portal machine, and Professor Calamitous got a copy of his blueprint and made his own. This allowed for him to visit each of their worlds, find allies in each world, and start stealing the energy from them. This so-called ragtag band of villains are Calamitous, Plankton, Vlad Platimus, and Denzel Crocker. They need to find what Calamitous' plan is and the location of his secret lab, but since they don't have any leads, they decide to go to Casper High in Danny Phantom's world first. This will allow for them to at least stop the villains from stealing the energy from that world. Then we get to finally play the game in the first area of the game called Jimmy's Lab. If you don't know, this is a 4-player action-adventure game that allows the player to switch between characters. If I had friends and played this with other people, each person would be responsible for their character and the puzzles they need to solve. When playing this game, we have attacks that we can use to take down the enemies in the area. SpongeBob can use his karate, and Timmy Turner has a gun that shoots stars, just as an example. Each level has coins that we can collect to upgrade our characters' attacks and skills to make them stronger and more useful. This doesn't take too long to do, but I think you would have to go through this game at least twice to get enough to max every character's skills out. Speaking of skills, these use our purple meter on the screen, and once we run out, we can't use our skills until we find purple orbs in the level. This isn't hard, and a lot of enemies drop them, so they're pretty much everywhere. We aren't completely vulnerable because we have a basic attack that we can always use. The green meter on our screen is our health for each character. Taking hits and falling off the level can cause this meter to drop, and the last number in the corner is how many lives that we have before we lose. And we'd have to go back to like a previous save point. I think that covers everything for the gameplay, and I will talk more about skills when we unlock them in our playthrough. But for now, let's take the portal and head to Casper High. Once we enter the portal, that ends the level, and we get this screen that shows us how many coins we collected during the level, and how many recalls or lives that we have left. This will also show us if we gain any during the level from collecting coins. The next level is called the Ghost Zone Prison, and this changes because Vlad actually made his lair where Casper High used to be. So when we show up, Vlad is there and he tells us that he has unlimited ghost power. He also has Danny's parents under his control and then asks Danny to help him. Danny refuses, and then he hits us with this pinkish red attack that causes us all to pass out. I have no idea how this works, but when we wake back up, we're trapped in the Ghost Zone Prison. The warden by the name of Walker is there to tell us that he's improved the prison, and even this time, Danny won't be able to escape. Then he tells us to behave and to be good prisoners. Now we actually get to play the game and have enemies attack us. The first thing we have to do is clean out all the ghost rats from the bunks in the cells for another ghost. If we help him out, then he will open the door to our cell so that we can escape. This is extremely easy, but just gives us the basic idea of how the game works. Shows that we can hit objects in the level to get coins, and gets us our first fight that is really easy by taking out all the rats. Once we're done, the ghost keeps his word and we can leave the area. I mentioned them before, but these green and purple orbs restore our power and health. The character that grabs the orb gets the most back, which makes sense considering they're doing the work. Finding Goddard in random places through the level gives us the chance to upgrade our abilities, continue playing, saving the game and continuing, or saving and quitting the game for the time. I tried to use these as an idea of when I should use my coins to upgrade my skills. When upgrading skills early in the game, we can upgrade them at 10 coins per little movement on their bar. Once the bar hits the end of the second section, then our ability gets better, but it also costs more coins to upgrade them. I used a lot of Timmy Turner in this game, so he ended up being the strongest on my team, but I tried to keep everyone else pretty close just in case I needed them for a certain boss or a section. Once I upgrade my team, we can move on in this level. Speaking of levels, they're extremely long and have multiple sections usually, so I'm going to skip over large sections because all we ended up doing is collecting coins and taking down enemies. I think it just makes the video feel cleaner by taking out a large bulk of the game where nothing happens at all. Anyways, we get our very first special power, which is for Danny Phantom. This one is called Overshadow and allows for Danny Phantom to stun an enemy and then take control of them. This can be helpful when we need to open doors that requires a scan of that character in order for us to get through. Some powerful enemies can be taken over, and this allows for us to clear out rooms really quickly, which is very convenient. Towards the end of the prison, we finally catch up with Walker the Warden, and we get our very first boss fight in this game. And this is a very easy one. Walker stands in place and will do an attack that causes rings to go across the ground, almost like a shockwave. All we have to do is jump over them, and they won't do anything to us. After beating him up for a minute, he switches to ghost form and jumps to the top of the area, where we cannot reach him. He uses the ghost portals in the area and summons ghosts. These ghosts are extremely easy to deal with and are used to regain power and health when they drop orbs. After doing this for a little bit, he runs out of health and we beat him down. We get a cutscene where Walker passes out and SpongeBob realizes that they were fighting ghosts the whole time. Danny thinks of an idea for using a ghost portal and the scene ends. We get our level complete screen where we collected 25 coins and 1 recall for completing the level. The next level is called Haunted Amity Park, where we can finally move on from the tutorial of the game. At the beginning of this level, we get a little cutscene where Jimmy tells the group that if he does research on the ghost technology that Danny's family uses, then he could figure out how to close the portal. The rest of the group tells him that heroes don't study and real heroes save the world. Then we get to control the team again and we unlock a new skill for Jimmy. This is the Shrink Ray, and this allows for us to make specific objects smaller so that we can move them out of the way. It doesn't get too much use during our playthrough of this game, but it is his very first skill. Once we leave this little lab, we head out into the streets of Amity Park, but it's been overran and a bunch of people have been turned into zombies. So we have to go around this area and change them back to normal by beating them up, I guess. I don't really know how this works, but that's the objective for this section. Nothing special about this part other than we're running through the city. After exploring the city for a little while, we come across Timmy Turner's first skill in this game. This is called the Freeze Glove, and this allows for us to freeze water into ice blocks so that we can jump over something or jump up to something. It can also freeze some enemies and objects. We use the Freeze Glove to freeze the water coming out of a fire hydrant and jump over this barrier to get to the next section of the level called Vlad's Castle. When we enter, we get a little bit of dialogue from our characters talking about how we need to shut down the generators for this castle because he has to be using a bunch of energy to keep the ghost portals open. Then we can play the level. This reminds me of an old Dracula-like castle, which I think was the point, but they did a great job showing that off here. Right at the beginning, we get SpongeBob's first skill of the game called Water Soak. This allows SpongeBob to soak up water from a puddle and to shoot it. This means that we can fill up objects for weight, or we can water plants so that they grow. There ended up being a lot of puzzles for the skill during the game. One thing to note is that we can't jump when we soak up water, so we have to think about the path we're going to take before we do it. When making our way through this level, we're able to take control of a gorilla and cause absolute chaos with him. He's very strong and one-shots most enemies. And we can even break specific things with him, allowing for us to advance further into the castle. I really like the parts that we got to play as the gorilla. They were super fun. We finally come across the first generator in the level, and it took me a minute to figure this out. We have to freeze the middle section of the generator. I don't know why it can freeze, but it freezes with a giant ice block around it. Then we have to shoot or hit the conductors that are attached to it. The generator can only have one, or it could be up to 4. Each one is a little bit different. I didn't know I could freeze the middle and kept taking damage from the electric current. But once I figured it out, it was extremely easy. We get to the top of the castle, all the generators are down, and we can finally go after Vlad. That's the end of this level, and we got 42 coins and 9 recalls going into the first real boss of Nicktoons Unite. When we enter Vlad's throne room, we get a cutscene where Danny tells him to give up, we saved Amity Park, and to close the ghost portals. Vlad tells us that he already had enough ghost power for their device and that we will have to fight him and protect Danny's parents. Now on to the boss fight. The boss fight with Vlad is a simple one. The idea of this fight is that Vlad stays in a bubble shield the whole time. So we have to take control of Danny Phantom's dad and use his gauntlets that are on his hands to break the bubble shield. And once we do that, we can attack Vlad directly. This will actually lower his health. He will try to fight us off using these orbs that he shoots at us, or drops these other purplish orbs from the ceiling that can take away from our skill meter. Since we have to use Danny in this fight, we need that purple meter to take control of his dad. So that can be a little bit annoying. Vlad will summon ghost guards to help fight us as well. They're pushovers though, but for some reason this game likes to auto lock onto them, so we're almost forced to take them out before fighting Vlad. That about sums up that fight. We don't hit for much damage, so we have to do this cycle a few times, but overall it's nothing to worry about, and we end up taking him out. Once we win the fight, we get a cutscene that has us telling Vlad that he's defeated and to give up. He tells us that he's defeated for now, and then leaves in a portal. Our group talks about how this world is saved, and we take our portal to leave Amity Park and head to Bikini Bottom next. When we arrive to Bikini Bottom, the first thing that Jimmy tells the group is to continue chewing the oxygen gum that he gave them so they can breathe in this environment. That is the one thing I really like about this game. It always has a way to explain how things work. It's not just like you're underwater and you can breathe now somehow. It gives a reason why things can happen. I don't think it's something I would have noticed as a child, but as an adult, it's nice to see that they try to explain away these problems. Anyways, no one is in Bikini Bottom, and SpongeBob thinks everyone is hiding for a surprise party. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and we get attacked by a bunch of plankton robots. We're surrounded until Sandy shows up and takes one of them out so that we can escape. Then we can start the Bikini Bottom level. Bikini Bottom is exactly what you think it is. It has us going through town starting at SpongeBob's house. Seeing all the stuff from the cartoon brought back a lot of memories from watching the show as a kid. Anyways, our objective in the first part is to escort Sandy, meaning that we can't let her take too much damage. This isn't a problem because the enemies in this game are not good. We get to the end of the section, we split from Sandy and make our way through the kelp fields. As we go through the kelp fields, we need to meet her at the Krusty Krab. Nothing really happens during the kelp fields, but when we get to the Krusty Krab, we get another skill for SpongeBob. It's called the Doodle Bob Lure. This allows us to release the power of Doodle Bob and lure enemies to him to stand on switches. That's the only thing that this does, and we only use it like twice during the whole playthrough. Seems like a very pointless power-up. After saving a few fish around the Krusty Krab, we meet up with Sandy again. She tells us that Plankton has complete control of Bikini Bottom and is kidnapping anyone that might resist him. The first being Mr. Krabs. She also tells us that he's catching all of the jellyfish in jellyfish fields, and he's taking them back to his fortress to extract their power. Sandy tells us that we need to go to jellyfish fields, take out the jellyfish harvesting machines, meet up with Agent Star, sneak into Plankton's fortress, shut down his machines inside, free the jellyfish, and stop Plankton. It's a simple plan, but there is a lot of steps, and that's going to be a large section of this game heading forward. That ends the first level, and we can head to Jellyfish Fields. When we arrive, we meet Agent Star, which, if you haven't figured out already, is Patrick. He yells to us, and then he gets sucked up by the jellyfish harvester. The area looks really nice, though. It's very green and bright, like in the cartoon. After the cutscene, we're thrown right into the fight, trying to destroy the jellyfish harvester. This fight is extremely easy. It can only suck us up and spit us back out, and that doesn't really do any damage to us, and it ends up being his only attack, so we don't really have too much to worry about. And to take it down, all we have to do is shrink it with Jimmy, and then use Timmy to shoot it a bunch with our star gun. 3 cycling this and it goes down, leaving a little pool of water that we can absorb. There is more than one of these though, and we have to take down a couple more using the same method. I'm not going to show the full fight for each, but just the end so you can see how simple the fights truly are. After destroying all 3 of the jellyfish harvesters, we can move further into Jellyfish Fields, and we get another skill for Jimmy Neutron. This is called Neutron Flare, and it will let us set fire to things that are smoking, causing them to explode. Another skill that is cool, but we don't end up using it that much. That's the problem I think I have with the skills in this game. We just don't use them enough to make them feel important. Before we can make it into the fortress, we come across the Flying Dutchman and all of his ships. They're blocking our way, and since we jump onto the ships, he tells us that we can never leave. He tells us that his crew is missing, and if we find them all, that we can go free. So now we have to go from ship to ship and take out a bunch of enemies and open chests to set his crew members free. At the time, I felt like this was fun, but looking back at this while editing, this is so much extra fluff for this part, and it does not need to be there. Anyways, after freeing all of his crewmates, we return to the Flying Dutchman. He tells us that we can leave the ships now, and they fly away. His anchor hits the door leading to the fortress, and now we have our way in. That ends the level after a very long time, and we can move on to the next section called the Jellyfish Factory. When we get to the Jellyfish Factory, we decide that we need to open 4 emergency exit valves, and that will save the jellyfish. But first we have to save Patrick because he's currently stuck in a bottle. Then we can start the level. This level is just a factory. Think of a factory with metal all over the place, and that's it. There isn't much to this section of the game besides going in different directions to open the valves. But let's take a look at our experience during this part. The first thing that we get is another skill for Timmy Turner. This skill is called Boy Chen Wonder and allows for us to lift heavy items and turn valves and handles that we wouldn't be able to normally. Extremely important for this level, but not much else. We use this one a bit during the rest of the game though, at least. After getting this skill, we have to follow Patrick as he's in the rafters and help him continue his path up top as we clear out the bottom. This part was interesting, but I wish we could have switched to Patrick during this section to actually change up the gameplay for a bit. A little later in the level, we come across a picture of a dog on the wall. He's so cute, look at that cute doggy. Anyways, we also get a new skill for SpongeBob called Bubble Bomb. This has us blowing a bubble that's in the shape of a bomb, and we can blow up walls with it. Yet again, a cool skill that is only used a handful of times during the game. I feel like these skills should have played a larger role in this game. This leads up to an area where we open the valves, and then we can complete the level and move on to the Chum Bucket. This is the boss fight for this section of the game. When we start the level, we get a cutscene that shows Plankton holding Mr. Krabs hostage, and all he wants is the Krabby Patty formula. But Mr. Krabs won't give it to him. SpongeBob tells him that he's going to stop him, but Plankton attacks us with a giant robotic crab, and this fight is a bit annoying, but it's our second major boss fight in the game. This fight is a bit more challenging than the fight with Vlad, but it's all about learning the patterns and it becomes extremely easy. When he jumps with the crab, it leaves a shockwave and we just need to jump over it. Nothing new. Then he will breathe in air or water. I'm not sure what he's doing, but when this happens, we have to throw a bubble bomb into his mouth. This will cause him to flip over and then we can attack him. After hitting him for a while, he flips back over, jumps to the top, and spawns in a bunch of alien creatures that we can take out. They're extremely easy and mainly just there to help you refill your health and skill meters. Once his health gets lower, he will try to shoot you with a red laser attack. But if you're on the other side of the arena, he can't do anything to you with that attack. I used SpongeBob to attack Plankton directly, and then used Timmy Turner to take out the aliens, which was a good technique for this fight. Once we defeat him, he tells us that he learned his ways, and that it's hard for his mom to love a supervillain. Danny says he might not be sorry, but he's no longer controlling Bikini Bottom. But right after this, Plankton lies and acts like he's going to attack us again, when Patrick lands on the top of the crab and on Plankton himself, and causes the machine to break completely. Plankton says that it's fine because they're still getting plenty of power from Dimsdale, and then he leaves in his portal. Timmy says we need to see what Crocker is up to, and then we leave and head to the next area of the game. Next up is Crocker's Fortress. When we arrive, we have a conversation about how there is a rainbow coming out of this solid gold fortress, and we need to make our way inside and figure out what's going on. Then we can start the level. The first thing we have to do is get the new skill for Jimmy Neutron called Quarterback Gear. This allows for us to slam into the pads on the wall, breaking them or getting them to stay so that doors will open. I guess this is good for enemies too, but I never used it for fighting, so I have no idea how good it really is. This allows for us to open Crocker's golden face and make our way into the fortress. After exploring for a bit, we come across a room that has a massive gem in the middle. We need to activate it by getting to the prism in each direction. This part is cool because every path is designed to test each character. I'm just going to talk about one, but we have to do this a total of 4 times to activate the gem. The one I'm showing is the SpongeBob one. We have to absorb and spit water into these rings on the ground to freeze the water to make steps. Using those steps, we can get to the far side of the room. It's not that hard, but it's neat that we actually have to use the skills we get to solve each puzzle. Once at the end of the area, we slam on the slam pad with SpongeBob and it turns on the first prism. Now we have to do this 3 more times to activate the big gem in the middle and finish this section of the level. Once we complete the other 3, we head back to the middle and talk to Cosmo. They tell us that we just have to touch the gem in the middle on the count of 3, and it will take us to Fairy World. So we do, and we finish the section and head to the next section called Fairy World. If you've ever watched Fairy Odd Parents, you know what this looks like, but for everyone else, it's a bunch of clouds and rainbows. It's the world that all the fairies live in. I always found this to be extremely interesting. When we arrive, we're tasked with saving all the fairies in the area that are captured, 10 in total. This is very easy, but it just takes a while to do. I feel like a lot of this game is longer than it needs to be, just to fluff out the game. Before we can save any fairies, we have to get a new skill for Danny Phantom. This skill allows for us to break crystal barriers and enemy shields. This one is called Ghostly Well and is a useful skill in this area because of all the enemies with shields that take forever to take down unless we end up using this skill. Basically, right after this, we get another skill for Timmy Turner, the most useful skill in the whole game called Remedy. This lets us heal ourselves and the other members of the team as long as they're close enough to us when we use it. This can come in clutch because of all the enemies in this area that are hitting harder than the last 2 levels. I won't use it a lot, but it's nice to have it in my back pocket in case I need it. Once we save all the fairies, we can make our way to the top of the Fairy Cloud Mountain and get to the big wand where Crocker is. He's using the wand to steal the fairies' powers from the world and we need to stop him. After an uneventful climb, we get to what looks like an oil rig tower and we finish this section and head into the boss fight for this area called the Big Wand. We get a cutscene when we start this level where Crocker tells us they have enough power and they're going to show off their Doomsday device by taking out one of the worlds. We need to take down Crocker, but with him absorbing the fairy magic, we can't do anything to him. We have to destroy the receivers like we did all that time back in the first level with Vlad. So this fight is an interesting one and feels less like a boss fight than the other 2. This fight also has 3 phases, so it's the longest boss fight up to this point. Crocker flies around the area and we have to shoot him until we get his health all the way down. Once his health goes all the way down, he sort of flies around in the air for a minute, like stunned. Then it lets us freeze the receiver and then we can break it. It takes forever to do this because you might be able to do 2 of them at a time, depending on where you are in the arena. If we don't take Crocker's health down quick enough, he goes to the middle and heals all the way back up, which is super annoying. He shoots magic stars at us during the fight and sometimes will drop rockets on us after he heals. The rockets can do a lot of damage if we're not careful. Some of the alien creatures will spawn during this fight too, but they're super easy and are mainly there to restore health and your skill power. I didn't think this fight was hard at all, but it took way too long and was actually boring in my opinion. Why did they decide to make this 3 phases is beyond me. During the second phase, the only new thing he does is drop a blue magic ball on us that can turn us into one of the aliens for a short amount of time, making attacking him almost impossible. At the beginning of phase 3, for some reason Danny didn't come with us, so he was on the second floor of the tower for a while we were fighting him. I think this was a glitch and I don't think it was meant to happen. We also have to use clouds and jump over to the receivers during this phase, which makes it take longer to get to each one of them. This fight took way too long to complete, and I was over it by phase 2. This is at 300% speed and it's still over 4 minutes long. Why? What was the point of that? Anyways, once the fight is over, we get another cutscene of Crocker telling us that we're too late. And even though we beat him this time, once they use the Doomsday device, he will return to rule the fairy world again, and then he leaves. Now we have to head to Retroville for the final area of the game. Still have a lot to do, but we're getting closer to the end and to saving the worlds. The first area we visit in Retroville is called Fantastic Voyage of Goddard, which means we're inside a robotic dog for this one, and we have to deal with robot dog fleas. I guess that's a thing. Once we get so far into the robotic body of the dog, we hit a point where we have to activate 4 cubes. The first one is already activated and has Jimmy's face on it, but we still have to do the other 3 characters. This makes us go into what looks like a computer simulation and take out enemies or collect Goddard gold tokens to complete them. There isn't much to these, so I'm just going to show the first one and then skip over the rest of them. Once completed, we have security clearance with each one of our characters so that we can move further into Goddard's body. We get to the head of Goddard and take an elevator to get there. Once we arrive, we're looking for the transmitter so that we can track down where Professor Calamitous is located, but it's part of the giant flea bot, so we have to defeat it to get the transmitter. The giant flea bot is another boss fight, but sort of feels like a mini boss over an actual boss. There is one main gimmick for this boss fight. When the giant flea bot tries to jump on the charger, we have to climb up and hit what I would call the eardrum, and then that will knock him off, and then we can fight him again. If we don't do this, he'll heal back up, so the quicker that you can do this, the better. If you can do it quickly, then the fight isn't that bad. The giant flea bot likes to use shockwave attacks, as all bosses do, and then shooting these 3 red orbs at us, which do pretty good damage. There is a giant healing orb on the one side of the arena, so every time it spawned, I just picked it up to stay healthy. Outside of that, we have to take out some smaller flea bots, but they're not that bad. I used Timmy Turner during this fight because of being able to hit the giant flea bot from a distance, and that made this a lot easier. It takes a little while, but we take it out with no problem and get a cutscene telling us that we got the coordinates to Calamitous' hideout, and it's under a warehouse that's not far from where they're at currently. We can leave Goddard now and head there to take him out and hopefully stop the Doomsday device. The next area is called Calamitous' Doomsday Lab. This is the last level of the game, and it's just a boss fight with all the villains up to this point in the game. They're in this spinning machine that has 4 colored domes that are each shields. We have to take each dome down and hit the villain inside to take them out. We can do this by changing the room around and attacking the power core, keeping the dome active. So this boss fight isn't just a fight, but also a giant puzzle. This boss fight was pretty fun. But before that, we get a cutscene with our heroes confronting the villains. During this cutscene, they activate the Doomsday device and it has a 5-minute countdown, which doesn't come into play when fighting this boss. I found that kind of disappointing because it could have made the boss fight way more challenging and stressful if we had a timer. Let's go into this boss fight and see how we did. There is so much to this fight, but moving the platforms to turn off the shields is what takes the longest by far. We have to watch and see what platforms move and where they move to. We can't hit Calamitous until the end, so we have to do the other 3 bosses first, and it took me a while to figure that out. During the fight, they're spawning in a bunch of enemies that we have to deal with. They shoot us with orbs from the sky, rockets from the sky, and they even have an attack that makes us small so that we can't do anything. Once we take down the shield using the skill for the right character, we have to hit the villain that opens up. And if we don't do it quick enough, the shield comes back and we have to run all the way back to the switch and do it again. This isn't hard because there's health and skill orbs everywhere, but it takes forever. I'm speeding this fight up too because it just takes way too long to watch the whole thing. We take out Crocker first, and I use Timmy Turner to attack because of his range attack and the fact that we don't have to aim as much to get our hits in. The machine spins that's in the middle, and we have to run to the right side of the machine to hit the correct villain. They also knock us off a bunch, but that's not a death, we just respawn, so that's nothing to worry about. Then we took down Vlad next, and I had to turn his shield off twice to take him out, and then we got Plankton, which was another one we had to do twice. Last, the barriers go down so that we can reach the one that shields Calamitous, and we're able to do this in our first attempt. Once his health is gone, the battle ends and we get to save the game, leading to a cutscene. In this cutscene, it is a 2-part cutscene. In the first section, Calamitous tells us that they defeated the machine, but the Doomsday device will still go off. As Timmy, Danny, and Jimmy try to figure out what to do, there's only 30 seconds before it detonates. SpongeBob ends up sneaking away and just ends up unplugging the device, causing it to shut off. Calamitous is defeated, and he says that he forgot to make the backup power supply for the device, so we ended up saving the day, and we can capture all the villains to take them back to their worlds. We get another cutscene where everyone is leaving to go back to their own worlds. Jimmy gives them a device where they can come back if something like this ever happens again, and then one by one they say their goodbyes to Jimmy, and then they leave through the world portal device. Jimmy says he has one last thing to do, and it's to tell Cindy to get out of his lab, because for some reason she's in there. I have no idea why she's there, but she is. Then the credits roll and we finish Nicktoons Unite. Would I recommend this game? I don't know if I would recommend this one. At parts it was fun, but there is a lot of extra fluff added into this game that just doesn't feel like it needs to be there. I like the boss fights, but getting to them just takes way too long. So I think I would lean against recommending this one. But let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you want to know what's next, stick around, but if not, thanks for watching. And check out the last GameCube game that we completed in our challenge on the screen now. If you made it this far, make sure to subscribe to the channel because it helps me out. And remember to like and share this video so we can get more eyes on this challenge. But until the next one, we'll see you later. We have our GameCube game list up. We got a random number generator ready at 5:13. And on the count of 3, we're going to find out what we're playing next. So 3, 2, 1. Generate 379, which is... Scrolling towards the bottom, 379 is Shrek Smash and Crash Racing. Man, it just loves to make me play Shrek games.